Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. The Association of Equipment Manufacturers, also known as AEM, in partnership with the American Soybean Association, CropLife America, and National Corn Growers Association, has released a study quantifying how widely available precision agriculture technology improves environmental stewardship while providing economic return for farmers. Here today to walk us through some of those details is Kurt Blades, Senior Vice President of Agriculture with AEM. Welcome, Kurt. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me on today. I love talking about this subject matter that is benefiting our entire industry.
Exactly. And a reminder for those of you that are joining us, please feel free to post any questions that you might have for Kurt there in the chat on your screen or directly in your social media feed if you're watching those from any of our social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and we'll get those over to Kurt. So Kurt, AEM, along with those several other ag organizations that were mentioned here, released this study titled Environmental Benefits of Precision Agriculture. Before we dive into the findings, give us some background on how the study came to be and how was it conducted?
Well, if you're involved in agriculture in the last 20 years and you've seen precision agriculture in place, it just becomes logical when you say a tractor that drives itself straight through the field and knows where it is probably using less fuel. And we all sort of know that logically, but explaining that to someone that is not as familiar with modern agriculture was proving a little bit difficult. So what we attempted to do at the request and suggestion of a couple of folks that are in that space, said, how do we quantify this? So we started off with just basically saying, how much fuel do you save when you drive in a straight row? And then we thought, well, while we're at that, there's some other technologies that are absolutely widely adopted today that have similar good environmental stories. And so the intent was, let's take a look at all those technologies that are on the market today, not the things that are promised, because there's some really great things that are promised out there, but the stuff that's on the market today. And what, given the rate of adoption that we're at right now, what does that mean from a water reduction, from a fuel reduction, from an efficacy of crop production products, even carbon reductions? And we just tried to put some quantity behind all that. And it's been a fun study, and it's really fun to have conversations about.
So how exactly, and I think this is a fair question, but how is precision ag being defined within the scope of this study?
So interesting that you asked that question, Sarah, because when we started down the study and started putting it forward, what we learned from our audience, and even those of us in precision agriculture, there are lots of definitions of precision agriculture. We tried to make it as general and specific as it could be. So for the purpose of this study, we're referring to precision agriculture as anything that's a kind of a technology that is based off of GPS that allows a farmer or a tractor to know where their place is in the field. So that includes the specific technologies of auto guidance, machine section control, variable rate application, fleet analytics and telematics, and precision irrigation. So, but that does also include sort of some of the enabling technologies like remote sensing, GPS, yield monitoring, imagery, climate and weather stations, all those things that kind of underline that make precision agriculture possible are part of it. But we're really diving into those 5 technologies that are widely available today.
Any technologies that are not included?
So we do talk about those that are, get a lot of headlines because there's some really neat technology that are either out in the field in limited release or even on the prototype that would include something like a identify and treat weed control, or something like a new combine that is incredibly smarter than it used to be. Those are great things, but they're just not as widely adopted to be able to make the impact that we're looking for. The next version of this, maybe 5-10 years from now, we'll be able to incorporate those studies, and holy cow, will it be fun to see what the results are on that.
Yeah, lots of change going on in that industry. So you do have to kind of say, okay, this is what we're going to look at, and down the road, maybe there's other things that come into it.
Absolutely.
Now, the study highlighted how policies and technological advancements can help farmers increase a number of kind of outcomes on their farm. Talk to us about exactly what that means from, say, an environmental standpoint, does
Yep.
precision ag hold significant upward potential for farmers when it comes to the environmental benefits?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sarah, as you probably know, most of your listeners will know that farmers buy precision agriculture because of one reason or another. But usually, the killer app ended up being when a tractor could drive itself down a straight row. A farmer could quickly quantify that this makes me money. It makes me money because it saves me a little bit of time and energy, or maybe I can have a less trained operator drive a tractor. So that was the killer app that adopted it. But a farmer may adopt precision agriculture because of the yield benefits that they know that they get in the economic benefits. So what we're trying to showcase here specifically is the environmental benefits are frankly kind of a ride along to the economic benefits that a farmer worked on. Most of these benefits that we're quantifying, though, are that most of the gains come from that increased productivity. But we also tracked things like the amount of fertilizer used, the amount of herbicide used, or specifically the active ingredient of the herbicide used. We tracked the fossil fuel use and water use. So if you combine all of those kind of 5 things together, you got a really great story that resonates with the environmental community.
Now, did this study look at, in any way, kind of at the downstream impact of precision technologies on, say, animal agriculture?
We kind of touched on that subject just a little bit with this study, but I would draw attention to another study that actually is chapter 2 of this, where we dive specifically into dairy. And knowing that the dairy market is one that dives really, I mean, it's super technologically advanced, with each cow having very specific data to it. And all the attention that's been given to animal agriculture in general, we're paying a lot of attention to that. This particular study we're talking about today really dives into the row crop because, again, if you're talking about feeding animals, they consume a lot of corn, a lot of things that are grown into the crop, and that figures into their total environmental footprint.
Right, because those inputs would have a lower environmental footprint going into that. So,
absolutely.
So have you we're talking kind of in the general sense here, have they put more specific numbers, say, in some of these reductions when it comes to water or to, environmental improvement? Was the study did it give some specifics for us that we could talk about?
We absolutely went to some specifics. In fact, we even took it one step further. The study was not designed for a farmer that is using precision agriculture, because there may already be a fan of it. This was really designed for those people that are not familiar with it. So we've listed it, some of those gains. So I'll just kind of, if you don't mind, I'll go through a couple of those. One of those is productivity, which I mentioned is sort of the number one gain we get out of the study and the adoption of precision agriculture. In fact, what we've determined, we were able to isolate, because of precision agriculture adoption over the last 20 years, we've been able to isolate that roughly productivity has increased 4% as a direct result of precision agriculture. That is the equivalent of about 10 million acres of land, an additional 10 million acres of land, the equivalent of it, because of that increased productivity of 4%. Or if you want to be very specific, that is the equivalent of 4.5 Yellowstone national parks that were avoided of having to be cultivated because of that productivity that comes specifically from auto guidance, variable rate technology, and section control. And that's with current levels of adoption, which are, depending on the crop, somewhere around 50% on average. If we had full adoption of precision agriculture, our study shows that there's another 6% of productivity that is just around the corner with full adoption of these technologies. That's a pretty neat story that's really hard to argue. If you look at the topic of fertilizer application, a lot of topic around fertilizer conversation. There's a lot of discussion in the environmental community about runoff. What our friends at the Fertilizer Institute have instituted the program called the 4Rs that really speaks to the right fertilizer being applied at the right time, the right rate, at the right source, in the right place. That all of a sudden makes plants be incredibly more productive. And when a plant is more productive, or the nitrogen is more available, obviously there's less runoff. So precision agriculture allows that to happen. In fact, what we've been able to see just quantified is that on average, there's about 15% reduction in greenhouse gas as a result of employing that 4R approach that precision agriculture allows. If you look at if you look at herbicide usage, we found a reduction of about 9% of the active ingredient specifically as a result of the precision agriculture technology. So if you look at those three things just as a general rule, that's a great story.
Yeah, those are some great numbers, and you hear this, you say 4%, and you're like, okay, 4%. And then you put acres to it. Oh my gosh, that is an incredible number. And then it could be 6 even. So that's terrific. So where would you say that farmers are right now in this point of adoption when it comes to precision ag? Are they fully on board? Are there still some things that need to be done? Where are we at?
Well, farmer adoption of precision agriculture really ends up kind of going to individual farms, their operations, and it determines, there's a lot of things that come into play there. Maybe the age of their fleet or the makeup of their fleet. There's some, geography, availabilities. Precision agriculture is easier on flat land than it is on some other lands. There's all sorts of things that come into play. So it kind of does depend a little bit on the area and the crops. But we do believe that there is a practical maximum that can be reached across the board. The attitudes of farmers are, for the most part, absolutely on board with this because they can immediately see the benefits of a tractor driving itself. And then, a pretty map becomes really neat things. And when they cash the paychecks at the end of the selling season, they say, we grew a whole lot more crop on that farm. That makes a big difference. Having said that, this technology does come at a cost. And some of the biggest hurdles of the adoption are the cost. We at AEM have been big supporters of. There's 2 bipartisan pieces of legislation that are actually out right now. One called the Precise Act and one called the Precision Ag Loan Act. The Precision Ag Loan Act is really designed for smaller and smaller farmers, basically, is the best way to say that, to have access to capital to invest in precision agriculture, and that provides favorable loan terms. The Precise Act is one that recognizes equip dollars, which is that encourages a farmer to make improvements to their land and to their operation, that allows precision agriculture to be funded through equip funds. Both of those 2 things create those necessary incentives for farmers to make this adoption, and again, take advantage of both the economic benefits that they would see in their operation, as well as the societal benefits that come from rapid adoption of the technology.
What about consumer acceptance of precision ag? Where are consumers at on their thinking? I know you're putting together some numbers and so putting quantifying things, but where are they at currently when it comes to having their food produced by automation?
Well, for the most part, tractors are fun. Tractors are emotional. Everybody kind of gets a tractor. When you compare precision agriculture maybe to some of the other technologies that are out there that have contributed to the yield advancements, it seems like tractors get our precision ag is currently very much in favor by the consuming public. Having said that, there are those that may not exactly understand the market that might have some hesitations. We've been very active with things such as our celebration of modern agriculture on the National Mall, as well as studies like this and some other pieces that we've done to outreach to the community. When we show how cool the precision ag is and how robots that pick your strawberries do a really good job, people's eyes light up and the consumers tend to get very excited about it. But one thing that we as in the entire industry of agriculture have got to do is continue to educate educate the consumers that farmers are the original stewards of the land, and that we truly take seriously our job of being environmental stewards and also providing a clean and safe food supply. Technology makes that just a whole lot easier to do.
Right. It's just another tool for farmers, and farmers are still very much involved in that process and heading it all up. So any final comments, Kurt, that you would like to leave our audience with today?
Well, I would just say that I would encourage all of your audience to take a look at this study. The full study is available at aem.org/insights. You'll also find another couple of bits of information that kind of speak to the same idea of automation really having some environmental benefits. And then if your audience is so inclined, become advocates for technology, because we do have a challenge to feed the world, and we have a challenge to feed the world in a very sustainable manner. And I would much prefer that we take advantage of technologies and do this in a very proactive and positive way, rather than limiting some of the technologies that might take us backwards a little bit in productivity.
Very good. Our thanks to you, Kurt, for joining us here today. Great information.
You bet. Thank you.
It's Kurt Blades, Senior Vice President of Agriculture with the with the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. We also want to thank those of you that joined us here today. We appreciate you taking time to tune in. A reminder that all Feedstuffs 365 sessions are available on demand at feedstuffs365.com, so you can share and view those at any time. Until next time, for Feedstuffs 365, I'm Sarah Muirhead.